today's brilliant move is also a brilliant blunder. This is one of the few times that I can think of where the term brilliant blunder is definitely the right term. In this position, Sam Loyd, the absolutely brilliant problem composer, who was not necessarily a perfect competitive player because of incidents like this, where he would let his creativity run away with him, has just played rook to a1 check. He sacrificed a rook, and he announced mate in 8. His opponent, Golmayo, thinks for a while and then resigns the game, conceding that it is in fact forced mate in 8. At this point, spectators come over. Obviously, this has been kind of dramatic, so they're interested in what's going on. And spectators point out that it's not mate in 8. The intended combination has a flaw. After seeing what they're saying, Golmayo wants to continue the game because he realizes they're right. It's not a forced mate in 8. But you can't just resume the game. Conceding the announced mate in 8, which used to be a common thing in tournaments and thankfully is not anymore, basically is resignation. So you cannot resign the game. You cannot continue the game. It is over at this point. So what is the intended mate in 8 and why does it not work? After rook a1 check, what Loyd intended was rook takes a1, legally forced after rook a1 check, queen g5 check. You can block with the knight, but it's really pointless. We'll just capture it. So king over to d1 allows queen d2. The king can never go to d1 in any of these lines because we'll always get queen d2 with a classic queen and helper mate. So instead we'll go to b1 and then the knight will go to d2 check. You can't run to the A file in general because of mates we're about to see, so you should go back to c1. Then we have knight b3, a double check, and after king b1, we have queen c1, boom, boom, a brilliant move, right? And after rook takes c1, knight d2 check, king a2, rook to a8. And you can only block the check and boom, Anastasia's mate. This is a fantastic combination of a smothered mate where we sacrifice the queen to force the king to block his own escape squares, and then we lead in this case to an Anastasia's mate. We combine two beautiful checkmating ideas to create a perfect combination. The only problem is that it is not perfect. In this line, after the queen sacrifice on c1, although we would naturally take the queen in our calculations because we've seen this idea before and we always take the queen because it's legally forced, in this case, it is not legally forced. There's an A file and the king can run over to A2. Because the knight is loose on B3, you don't have rook A8 check because the king will just capture the knight. The game is not entirely over, but the combination is a bust for black. After queen takes c2, defending the knight, moving the attack queen, and opening up the rook a8 check threat again, we have a beautiful move from white. We can play queen c6. When queen takes c6 allows a royal fork, and the queens get traded, and black is busted. White is totally winning. You do have a nice move, knight takes a1, which defends the queen on c2. And after rook takes a1, you can try and fight on as black. You have some pawns for the knight, but basically in this position, white is up a piece, and it's certainly white who has the better position despite his king being exposed. So, unfortunately, the beautiful combination doesn't quite work. However, you may often see it in puzzle books still. And what people like to do to make this combination work is they'll throw a pawn on c4. The pawn on c4 was not there in the game, but if you want to use this in a puzzle book so that the combination actually works, you can put a pawn on c4 to defend the knight on b3, and then, because rook a8 would be mating here, everything comes together and you do have a forced checkmate. If you like this video, please do like and subscribe and leave a comment to support the channel. Also, check out our playlist of best chess moves and best chess games for more great content.